Stand by. The program will begin soon.
When I see an American flag, I immediately look at that I'm like, that person's probably a bigot. That person's probably a homophobe. That person's probably a racist if they're just flying American flags out everywhere.
Hold up.
Hey, this sounds more like a you problem. You should probably go see somebody about that.
We got over $5 million per year from the American taxpayers, being given no bid contracts from Maine Governor Janet Mills, and is building a military in Somalia. He has been funneling money back to Somalia to build a military in Somalia. The guy is running a migrant services agency that bills Maine Care, which is what we call Medicaid, about $5 million a year. Oh no, those illegal immigrants aren't getting any Medicare. And then he said he raised money in the U.S. to buy weapons, munitions, and supplies for a paramilitary force he had hoped to lead as the president of Jubaland. Yes, that's a real state in Somalia. And to be clear, in Somalia, he's running to be the warlord of Jubaland. Elections in Jubaland aren't exactly like elections in America. It's whoever has the most guns is able to certify the election. So he needed to buy a paramilitary organization and paramilitary support in order to win the election. Avocados Diablias asked if you could bring any one comic strip character to life and train them to be a hitman, who would you choose? Oh, that's the easiest question ever. Calvin. Calvin. Oh, look, Stop Numble Nation, you and I are on the same page. Calvin. From Calvin and Hobbes. Yes. And by God, Calvin would be the greatest hitman to ever live. Better than John Wick. I guarantee it. I didn't have to think of it.
Stand by. The program will begin soon.
Yes, it's true. The Obama administration deported over 3 million people, and the Biden administration, over 4 million people. But they didn't need troops. They didn't need military in the streets to do it. Tell me why. Put it in the chat. Tell me why you think that's that.
Because when Obama and Biden were in office, there were no riots in the streets of Los Angeles, even though 80% of the deportations were also expedited with no hearing. But you didn't give a shit then. Now that Trump's in office, you suddenly give a shit. Hope that helps.
That turkey was amazing. Mostly because I cooked it, because I'm really good at cooking turkey. So one of my tricks new tricks that I do, you know how when you cook a turkey in a pan, even if you got one of those raised pans, it always happens. You cook this turkey and the breast of the turkey get all nice, the top gets all nice and brown, and then you go to cut the underside and the thighs and legs are like all white underneath and not even done. Well, there's a trick you can do to avoid that. What you do is you cook the bird upside down for at least 1/3 of the cooking time. So you end up browning the bottom and sealing that first, even more so. And the other thing I do is I start my oven at 500 degrees. The first 45 minutes to an hour, you put it at 500 degrees, and then you turn it down to 325 and do the rest of the cooking. But anyway, do it upside down, and 1/3 of the way through, then you flip the bird back over in the pan, and the entire bird gets finished at the same time. So apparently, in Europe, you can refer to Americans as pigs. but not convicted rapists. A German court gives woman harsher punishment than convicted. I hate it when people say rapist. I'll just say unwanted sexual activity peoples for calling him a disgraceful pig. She called someone convicted of that crime a disgraceful pig and got a harsher punishment than the person who actually committed unwanted sexual activity. And so that's why people were posting that story about the German court gives women harsher punishment than convicted unwanted sexual activity.
Stand by. The program will begin soon.
There's a story about this man too. He led the attack on Pearl Harbor but died a Christian missionary on December 7, 1941. Captain Mitsuo Fuchida flew the lead plane against Pearl Harbor, shouting the famous code, Tora, Tora, Tora. He hated America. But after the war, he met a former American POW, Jacob DeSager, who had returned to Japan not to punish him, but to preach the gospel. Shocked by this forgiveness, Fuchida bought a Bible. He converted to Christianity in 1950. The man who started the Pacific War spent the rest of his life touring the U.S. and Japan preaching. Quote, I was a follower of the sword. Now I'm a follower of the cross. Amazing. Nearly 5 years after pipe bombs were discovered outside the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee and the Republican National Committee in Washington, D.C., a suspect has been arrested in the case. On Thursday, federal agents arrested Brian Cole Jr., 30 of Woodbridge, Virginia, and he was charged with transportation of explosive devices, blah, 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 blah. But on Friday, legacy media outlets began reporting that Cole, this young black man right here, was a Trump supporter. And I'm not saying he's not because he's black. I'm just saying there's other evidence that might support the fact that he's not a Trump supporter. But we'll get to that. Quote, Brian Cole worked for a bail bonds company run by his father that worked to free illegal immigrants from ICE facilities and sued the Trump administration's Department of Homeland Security. He worked for his dad. They tried to free illegal immigrants. Interesting. Yes, I know every Trump supporter, every black supporter, Trump supporter, would be quick to hire Benjamin Crump, who represented the family of Trayvon Martin, attempting to sic the Biden administration Department of Justice on a local Tennessee prosecutor who had raised concerns about the bail bond companies. We'll find out eventually that this guy had wanted nothing to do.
Additionally, if you open this up to ice fishing, while on the surface it sounds good, then what happens next year? Does someone come back and say, I want an ice shanty on Hudson Springs Park for X amount of time? And if you then allow ice fishing with shanties, then that leads to another problem. Prostitution. And now you've got the police chief and the police department involved. Just data points to consider.
It is Happy Bill of Rights Day on December 1791. The Commonwealth of Virginia ratified the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. George Mason and James Madison were the driving forces behind these guarantees of individual rights. And note that all the individual rights that are in the Bill of Rights are not rights granted by the government. Those are the inalienable rights which the government shall not infringe. And if you notice, it's interesting because the Bill of Rights is all about what the government cannot do, not what the government can do. And I think kind of got away from that a little bit, where some people seem to think that the government is going to grant you rights. No, these are rights you have, whether there's a government or not, and the rights that the government must protect for you. So it was a unique thing when it came about in 1791 that government is not there to grant you or give you privileges, but rather to protect the rights that you have. It's fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you live from the Lucky Dog studio in a hidden location somewhere in the upper Midwest of the United States of America, it's a brother making his own way but with all the wrong opinions. Welcome to the Morning Night Live with your host, the one and only Dawg Knight.
Hey there, everybody. I'm really late today, but it is what it is. I'm not feeling the greatest, a little groggy from the drugs, and but I'm okay. I was debating if I was going to do a show today or not, but then I saw a couple of this guy's videos, and I thought, well, I do want to talk about this Karmelo Anthony case, which I haven't talked about. I've really given an opinion on it because I just never felt like I knew the facts, and now that I've seen the case go by, the reporting on it, I think my opinion is based on the facts and on the trial and not on any kind of emotional things, because boy, oh boy, there's a lot of emotions wrapped up in this, and a lot of it is just misinformed stuff. So the internet telephone game has worked wonders on this case, where it went from a confrontation, a minor confrontation that turned deadly, into some people now saying, "Oh, he was jumped." Well, and there was 5 people attacking him, and he has bruises and this, and none of that's true. But the internet telephone game will tell you that that things that happen that didn't happen, they'll just start making stuff up, and then it becomes truth. And so it's kind of wild. Even some rumors lately that, oh my gosh, the father of the victim, he knew the judge and the prosecutor and everybody. They were at a Christmas party together. I mean, someone pulled out some fake ass photo or whatever. Oh, it's on his Facebook page. Nah, it's not. Anyway, so we're gonna get into that. There's a couple turning topics that popped up that I would talk about, but then mostly I want to talk about this case because. And in a little more detail, and then I also want to show you what Anthony Brian Logan said, which I like ABL. I've never thought he was a genius, but I always like his take on things. But I think he's completely missed the ball on this one. It's kind of weird. So anyway, let's say good morning, everybody, and get this thing going. First in the chat today, Jesse Leon's in the house, gets the bell. What's up? Good to see you, Jesse. It's been a while. Also, Carousel just in the house, Green Badger Outdoors, Blue-Eyed Scream, Old Guy Gamer, Mike Savage, Blarg. And I don't know why you didn't get a notification yesterday. That's weird. You got it pretty late. And then that's it, because for some reason, either my notifications aren't going out because I'm not at my regular time or whatever. But, those of you who are here, I appreciate you being here. So, let's just get on with it and go. Old guy, or no. What am I doing? Holiday. I almost forgot to put the holiday calendar up today. And it's also Hump Day, and I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed because, first of all, for me, it doesn't matter because I'm not going to be working for a while. But also, when I went to pull up the Hump Day tab on X, there's nothing I could show you. It's nothing but naked people doing dirty, nasty stuff on the internet, and I'm like, I can't show any of it. So it's just like, it's wild. I don't get it. So anyway, good morning, JB. Hump Day. Isn't it Wednesday? Today's Wednesday, right? I'm not sure if I got my days right. Yes, it's Hump Day, and there's a lot of humping on the Hump Day tab. I can't show you any of it. So anyway, also thank you. I don't know if anyone shared the stream, but I'm gonna find out right now. I got some notification. Let's see what's up on here then. Starting with this President Chairman replying to the show with a Porky Pig. See, you got the theme. It was a Warner Brothers theme today. Thank you very much, and I will let's repost that. And And then also Green Badger Outdoors, a little military. However, is that an Apache? What is that? That looks like a. Oh no, that looks like a. What's that? I don't know what the copter is, but anyway, thank you, Green Badger Outdoors. Also, thanks Pincalo, Green Badger Outdoors, and Resolute Germ for reposting the show. Greatly appreciate it. And Mike Savage, of course, with a Let Us Go blarg. Thank you, sir. And I think that's everybody. So, like I said, it's a light crowd today, but we'll do with what's due. And I said good morning, JB, right? What up, JB? AKA, well, Jay Blizza. Ah, my God, this hurts. This is such a terrible chair for what I'm going through. Oh my God. And plus I get cramps in my legs. So this is going to be a short show. Let's just put it that way. The hip is actually performing just fine. And I am walking, using this cane instead of a walker, and it's getting better daily, but this is just the most uncomfortable chair. I probably should have brought down my ice pack and set it under my buttock, because that's where they cut through. Well, they cut this side of my buttock. So anyway, all right. So let's get into the show. A couple things. Again, it is Hump Day, and I can't show you anything on Hump Day. It's all naked people. So I'm not gonna even show you the tab, and even the Happy Hump Day tab. Well, let's see. Here, this is okay. I can do this one. This is safe. Not that one. Oh, I can't show that. But here, person wanted for stealing liquor from a store. That's weird. Dropping some liquor down in his bunny costume there. It's pretty weird. So anyway, that's the only thing I can show you on the Hump Day tab, or the Happy Hump Day tab. But if you want to know what else you can celebrate today other than Hump Day, well, today is National Bay Day. That's funny, because that bay, the old bay, nickname for your bay, your honey, your special one. That's pretty recent. I think that bay that's like 10 years old. There's not a whole lot of, but anyway, fun observers on June 10th celebrating romantic partners, close friends, and loved ones. Well, no. Your bae is not your close friends, your loved ones. Your bae is your sweetheart, the one you want to do that Hump Day shit with. But anyway, also National Iced Tea Day, which I'm sure people across the pond are thinking sacrilege. But for us in the States, we love us some iced tea. And if you're in the South, you like it super sweet. National Egg Roll Day. Well, happy National Egg Roll Day. Also, National Black Cow Day. What is the black cow? Well, that's a root. Well, this says a root beer float, but isn't a black cow different than a root beer float? I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, maybe you put some chocolate syrup in your root beer float and that makes it a black cow. I don't know. Anyway, National Ballpoint Pen Day, for that invention that was invented by a brother. National Herbs and Spices Day. National Deborah Day, her name is Deborah. National Sean Day, her name is Sean. Belmont Steaks Day, that's not today. Is it? The Belmont's on Saturday. What? Get ready for the ultimate racing event, Belmont Steaks. I think maybe they put that on the 9th one time, and then they ended up black cows make chocolate milk. Okay. Yes, they do. Okay, and then Portugal Day. If you're from Portugal, happy Portugal Day. All right, that's it for the holidays. In the main news, like just the stuff that popped up on my feed, Act Blue apparently is under fire, because they, for a long time, Act Blue has been fundraising for the Democrats, and unfortunately, there's a lot of evidence that they've been doing some illegal shit, and so apparently they've been invoking the Fifth Amendment at a House hearing on fraud prevention. During a House Administration Committee hearing titled Preventing Fraudulent Donations, Transparency, Verification, Accountability, Act Blue CEO Regina Wallace-Jones repeatedly took the fifth when pressed on the platform's verification of small dollar contributions, which have raised over $19 billion with a B for Democrats since 2004. The session stemmed from a Republican-led probe launched in 2023, citing vulnerabilities like the absence of mandatory CVV codes until late 2024, alleging allegations of foreign donations, and a joint April 2026 report noting the resignation of Act Blue's entire legal and compliance team post the 2024 election. Now, while Republicans push for explanation on compliance failures, Wallace Jones called the inquiry political retribution and defended her silence as protected for privileged communications. Democrats agreed, framing it as a partisan overreach amid broader concerns over election integrity. Now, look, Act Blue has been taking, they allegedly have been taking foreign donations and also just fake donations using like Visa gift cards. Like now that they finally stopped doing that, but I know in the early 20s, there was a big hubbub because they were still allowing people to do donations using gift cards, but they were getting them like these $200 increments with no chain of custody, on where the money came from. And so it was speculated that a lot of that was coming from foreign donors. Anyway, so cover up. Act Blue CEO Regina Wallace Jones just told Congress she will plead the fifth rather than answer questions about donation verification. Regina placed Aaron Hill as the CEO to bring credibility to the beleaguered fundraising arm of the Democratic Party. Now, I don't know. Now some of the Democrats are pissed. Donna Brazil says, what's happening to Act Blue is part of a broader pattern. Republicans are using the machinery of government to punish anyone who opposes their nonsense. This is called political retribution. Well, no. Act Blue has been screwing around for a while. So if you want to look at that, there's, let's see, they have a link to her testifying on C-SPAN. Let's see, here's an example. Here's an example, though, of what they're calling out. Here's this is Representative Brian Stile. I don't know where he's from, but anyway.
After receiving this information, we deposed and interviewed 5 former Act Blue employees. When deposed, Act Blue employees refused to answer a single question. Instead, they invoked the Fifth Amendment 146 times. We gave Act Blue employees an opportunity to answer our questions, but they refused. But now, Ms. Wallace-Jones, you have a real opportunity to explain how this occurred. Ms. Wallace-Jones originally agreed to appear voluntarily before us this morning, but late Monday afternoon, her lawyers requested a subpoena in order for her to appear. A subpoena was provided. Ms. Wallace-Jones is now before us. I look forward to your answers to our questions.
Okay, so that's, let's see if there's anything else here. Breaking IRS records reveal Act Blue CEO Regina Wallace-Jones, now under federal investigation, has been getting paid double for the previous CEO, hauling in almost $800,000 a year, and has spent almost $3 million on security. There's a typo here, including a bunch of personal bodyguards while blowing through a nearly, $5 million travel budget, including checking herself into presidential suites of luxury hotels. So, so she's living large off of being the new head of Act Blue. Good morning, Ty Alexander, by the way. Regina Wallace-Jones will plead the fifth before the House Administration Committee today. So, yeah, Act Blue's always been a little bit sketchy. Let's just put it that way. All right, moving on. There will officially be a Nazi in the main Senate race. Yes, Graham Plattner. Now this is describing as Marine veteran Graham Plattner wins Maine Democratic Senate primary. Plattner secured about 72% of this vote in Tuesday's Democratic primary, defeating Governor Janet Mills and David Costello to advance against Republican incumbent Susan Collins in November. The 41-year-old from Sullivan, Maine, who served 3 combat tours in Iraq and now runs a small business, held 83 town halls in 8 months, and earned quick endorsements from Senator Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. So that's special. His campaign faced turbulence from past revelations, including a Nazi-associated tattoo. Associated? It was the exact emblem of that particular Nazi unit. But, digress. He covered up old Reddit posts with controversial comments blamed on PTSD and alcohol issues. Well, that's exactly what we want in Congress. And ex-partner accounts of toxic behavior during self-described dark period, though he disputes some claims and emphasizes redemption. So anyway, hello, Anna Lynn, by the way. Let's see. Democrats voted for a guy who has a Nazi tattoo, lied repeatedly about his Nazi tattoo, said he would rape, I shouldn't say that out loud, people, bragged about drawing penises in porta potties, praised Islamic terrorist, said he's a communist, joined an app known to be used by predators to contact minors. Well, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So anyway, he won. And so now we're going to be hearing about Nazi tattoos for ad nauseum, not ad hominem. He actually had one. Then the other feature story, Jimmy Kimmel has rented a U-Haul for Spencer Pratt, mocking Spencer Pratt for losing. On Tuesday's Jimmy Kimmel Live, the host showed a U-Haul branded "Just Defeated" with a sad cartoon of Pratt joking that he and Heidi could run for mayor elsewhere. Pratt, known from The Hills, came in third in the June 2nd primary, behind Karen Bass and Nitya Raman, after criticizing Bass over the fires that destroyed his house. He vowed to leave LA if he lost, but the stunt drew mixed reactions. Some called it classic late-night humor, while others deemed it cruel, given his loss and personal tragedy. Well, you know, Jimmy Kimmel doesn't give a fuck about no Republican-ish personal tragedy. So yeah, Jimmy Kimmel doing his stuff. How long is his show gonna last? Oh no, it's Colbert who got taken off the air. Well, Kimmel's probably not far behind. His show is certainly losing money. And then the only other thing I want to talk about before this Karmelo Anthony stuff is the word rigged. Because speaking of Spencer Pratt, my gosh, the process by which they got this guy in third place instead of second place in California is causing lots of people talking about rigged elections. Yes. Now let's just show a couple things here. Now the first thing under rigged though was James O'Keefe posted this with a fact check. Said senior reporter at MS Now, formerly MSNBC, DNC, whatever you want to call it, says there's no evidence of election fraud in California. Now, to which he says, "What are you talking about? Have you not done any research?" The Department of Justice prosecuted an LA woman named Brenda Brown for paying people to register to vote using fake addresses. And he says, "My team filmed this fraud happening all over Skid Row on multiple days and occasions. Instead of sitting in your journalist cubicle at MS Now all day and peddling lazy propaganda, go into the field and investigate voter fraud on Skid Row like my team did." The mainstream media continues to lie, and we have officially issued a retraction to MS Now for their false statements about no evidence of election fraud in California. Because they had a thing where he went out there and watched them. He watched them registering these homeless voters under whatever name they could and filing fake addresses and signatures. And then they do the what do they call it? The ballot harvesting thing. And so there's ballot harvesting from all these homeless people, and then throw them in the box. That should not be legal. I'm just sorry. The whole ballot harvesting thing is crazy, but that's what they do in California. Hello, Digiworm. What up? So anyway, and then here it is, a hidden cabinet bombshell. This is Democrat operative Joel Caldwell of the Coalition for the People's Agenda at Fulton County. Oh, this happened. And also Georgia. They're talking about Georgia still from 2020 maybe. A Fulton County ballot harvesting NGO chief caught on tape admitting it all. Democrats are stuffing ballot drop boxes with fraudulent votes, and it's all caught on videotape. He also admits this is how they rigged the 2020 election and why Democrats fight to the death against voter ID. They pay people to illegally ballot harvest. They bribe ballot counters and election officials. They forge and falsify ballots. And the Atlanta mayor straight up stole the election. He says it all himself on tape. Let's see. Well, let's see what he says on tape. This might be the James O'Keefe's old spot. So here we go. We'll just watch some of it.
That was the big thing here, was the counting of the ballots at the Dome. It was all counting the ballots, and they told them that it was a leak on the opposite side of the Dome. Everybody needed to evacuate. So So then when they all
Oh, this is a Crowder,
the
I think.
Democrats went back in and started counting. The Republicans went back to the headquarters. They didn't know.
You know that for a fact?
That's what happened. Yeah.
They made it seem like nothing had, like they legitimately had leak issues.
Yeah, so they had said it was leak issues. So you see them on the video putting everything up, and they left. No, they put someone putting stuff up, and then you see them leave. Then they was out in the parking lot when I guess they told them they could come back in. Or they was out in the parking lot and they was gonna go back to headquarters. And so the Republicans left, the Republican watchers, they all left. And so after they left,
Hey, Tyler F.
the Democrats went back in there and started counting. So that's the videotape. You see them walking back in, pulling the shit out from underneath the tables, and during that hour. And then the other part was that when they were counting, I think during that hour, that stretch of that, it was only like less than 100 votes was counted for Trump. And just statistically, you're downtown, there's going to be more than 100 votes for Trump. That's what happened in 2020. That's when the ballots started stuffing them ballots.
It's a 9-minute long video, but if you want to go through this thread, there's a couple things like that. Also, there's more election fraud out of Fulton County, Georgia in 2020 than you can shake a stick at. Democrats get hit with hard facts about the 2020 election. And this is someone who's running for lieutenant governor, I guess. But let's see what this is.
Is it not true that Joe Biden won the 2020 election?
Senator, it is true that the 2020 election resulted in the certification of Joe Biden as president. But if you will allow me, since you want to bring up 2020, 3,930 double scanned ballots in Fulton County. 39,000 residents of Fulton County who had filed a national change of address form with the U.S. Post Office voted in that election. We know that 84% of those 39,000, either by their own admission or the filing of a new voter registration, were likely ineligible to vote in that election. We know that 315,000 ballot tapes were not certified and maintained the chain of custody as they were supposed to. And we know that there are thousands of missing ballot images from the 2020 election. The data also shows us that it appears that those 3,930 double scan ballots was done intentionally. Now, I've told the story in this well of Gabriel Sterling before, but I'll tell it again. Because Gabriel Sterling purchased his home in 2018 from an individual who then moved out of the state of Georgia. Gabriel Sterling, as you know, Senator, was the chief operating officer for the Secretary of State in Georgia. Gabriel Sterling was shocked to receive a piece of mail from Fair Fight telling him to return his ballot, that Gabriel Sterling received a piece of mail addressed to the individual who had sold him the home, who was living out of state, from Fair Fight. And Fair Fight was reminding that individual who lived out of state to return their ballot because it was requested by the mail. Sterling then does a little investigation of his own and discovers this individual who had moved out of state voted in the 2020 presidential election illegally. That vote was counted. It was rescanned and counted again in a recount, and it was counted in the hand count, Senator. So I would tell you, due to the shenanigans of 2020, I don't believe that we can say we know who the rightful winner was. We do, of course, know that Joe Biden was certified, but I do not believe that we know, due to the small margin of error, who the actual winner was.
Okay, that's probably the best answer, especially as the answer, because this is how Democrats often want to trap Republicans. Well, did Joe Biden win the 2020 election? Yeah, he was certified as the winner of the election by the process we went through. Doesn't mean it was right. Doesn't mean it's right. So anyway, that's a lot of it's about Fulton County and that. But let's get into the main topic today, because it's really what I want to talk about. I want to talk about this, the Karmelo Anthony trial. Now, I've followed it a little bit, or I did follow it, the updates from the news, because there was unfortunately, this is one of those trials that was not televised. And I think trials should be televised. I don't know why they seem to have this thing about not televising high-profile trials like this. I think you get a lot more clarity. You get more people understanding what the facts of the case are. And, you don't get a lot of speculation and a lot of the stuff that the wild stories that come out where people are saying, well, he was jumped by 6 people. He was just doing self-defense. Or, the guys, he thought he was in fear of his life because the twin brothers both were attacking him and he'd been punching him and he's got bruises on his face. All of which is false. But because of the way the internet works and the way the telephone game, the telephone game, the game you play as a kid, one kid whispers something to someone's ear and then the next kid whispers in the next ear. And by the time you get to the last kid, you got a completely different event happening sometimes. Well, that's what happens on the internet a lot. People say, well, I heard. And then, well, what you heard wasn't anything doing the facts. So first, we're going to just go to the Washington Times piece regarding the verdict, okay? So I got here, Karmelo Anthony convicted of murder in Texas track meet stabbing, okay? Texas jury on Tuesday found Karmelo Anthony guilty of murder in the fatal stabbing of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf at Frisco High School, a track meet last year, concluding a closely watched trial that drew national attention over questions of race, self-defense, and school safety. Now, let's just stop there for a second. There was no question of race regarding the facts of this case. This had nothing, none of the kids thought it was anything to do with race or anything. Okay. And the only reason it is the question of race is because a white kid got killed by a black kid. And so there's already many assumptions that just come out because of that. But really, if you change the races to either being them the same race or the kid who died would have been black and the other one white, it doesn't change the facts of the case. And I'm going to tell you right now, my whole thing on this, I tried to not judge the case until after the trial, although I had my opinions because the initial facts that came out seemed to match the facts that came out in the case. Now, everything in between for over the year, when it's, I hear people having great emotional arguments about this case, and also completely false data about the case. I go, wow, where did you hear that? You're just making something up. Anyway, the Collin County jury deliberated for about 3 hours before returning its unanimous verdict. The same jury will now decide Anthony's sentence, which they've already done. Under Texas law, murder conviction is punishable by 5 to 99 years in prison. Before the judge and jury entered the courtroom, Anthony's attorney, Mike Howard, had his arm around Anthony, who looked tense. Austin Metcalf's parents were pulled aside and reminded not to show any public emotion. When the verdict was announced, the friends of Metcalf were in the courtroom, as well as his twin brother, Hunter, attending for the first time. Hunter had not been allowed in the courtroom as he was on the witness list, though he did not testify. The jury did not look at Anthony as they walked in. The case stems from a confrontation at Kendall Stadium in Frisco, Texas, on April 2nd, 2025, where Anthony, then a student at Frisco Centennial High School, and Metcalf, a student athlete at Frisco Memorial High School, clashed under a tent where athletes had gathered during inclement weather. The altercation ended when Metcalf was stabbed in the chest. Medical examiner's testimony at trial revealed that Metcalf had been stabbed through the heart with a 2-inch wound described as gaping. Prosecutors characterized the stabbing as unjustified sneak attack inside the team tent, while the defense argued that it was a split-second act of self-defense born of fear and chaos. Now that's the defense saying it was an act of self-defense. So there's a proof of whether or not it's self-defense under Texas law and whether or not it's a murder under Texas law. That's where we're getting to. Anthony did not testify in his own defense. Before deliberations began, Judge John Roach Jr. ruled that jurors could also consider a manslaughter charge in addition to murder. The jury ultimately returned the more serious verdict. The trial drew scrutiny over jury compensation with no black jurors selected to serve. According to WFAA, cameras were not permitted in the courtroom, which that bothers me. And maybe it's because there's minors testing. I don't know why they decided not to have cameras in the courtroom. And seating for the public was limited. The case had sparked intense national attention, fueled by social media debate centered on the race of the two young men, public protests, online threats, and allegations of doxing involving people connected to the proceedings. Anthony, 19, was convicted in Collin County District Court in McKinney, Texas. The sentencing phase decided by the same jury, where he got 35 years, 17 parole possibility after 17. All right, so that's just the fact of the verdict. Okay. Now, and then there's a space here of Ace of Spades. You know, one thing that really bugs me about this case. I didn't notice this. Hang on, fix this. I never clean the Streamlabs. Let's restart labels. What the hell's going on there? That's weird. Let me do that. Give me a second there. Okay, there we go. All right. So as now, I don't know how much you have followed the case. The details from the trial, okay? Just the trial. Karmelo Anthony. There's a rain delay and a track meet. Memorial had a tent up in the bleachers. It was a mild rain delay. There was possibly storms coming, but it was a mild rain delay. And for whatever reason, Karmelo Anthony's school did not bring a tent that day. And so Karmelo Anthony went to go sit in the tent with the Memorial athletes. And apparently during the trial, several witnesses on both the defense and the prosecution, witnesses seemed to agree that Anthony had been asked multiple times to not sit with their team. The coaches had said, this area is for your team. If other teams should be sitting in their areas during this delay. Multiple people asked Anthony to leave. And then ultimately, Austin Metcalf asked him to leave, said, you need to get out of here. To which Anthony replied, touch me and see what happens, while his hand is in a bag. Okay. In his backpack. He has his hand in his backpack. It says, touch me and see what happens. Now, Austin decides to push Karmelo Anthony one time. After one push. Now, should he have put his hands on him? Probably not, but he did. But he pushed Anthony, and Anthony's immediate reaction was to take the knife out of his bag tap, and he stabbed Austin directly in the heart with this knife, and then ran off. Okay, that was the total altercation, other than multiple times being told to leave, right? And then after police caught up with him, because after the mayhem in the stands, the police went up there. The police walked down to the track. Anthony was still near the track. Police caught up with him, and they said something to the effect of, "Are you the alleged person who stabbed the kid up there?" And he said, "No, I'm the one who stabbed him. I am the one who stabbed him. He put his hands on me." Okay, and then so they arrested him, and that's how the whole hubbub began. Now, what was wild about this? Hello, Johnny Hellcat, by the way. What's wild about this? And Avocado Seattle, good morning. That altercation blew up on the internet because of the race of the two people involved. And a large number of people were saying, well, he put his hands on him. That's his self-defense. It's automatically self-defense. And then it turned into, well, they were bullying him. They were pushing him around, and there's a bunch of people jumped in, and he was surrounded. And 5 people were punching him and jumped him, and he was in self-defense. And then, he hit his brother. Well, they're 6'2", over 200 pounds, and Anthony's, 5'8" and 130 pounds. They're twice his size. It's self-defense. Not necessarily. That's not how self-defense works. So, and when I kept hearing that, I'm like, well, wait a minute. The story I heard was that he said, touch me and see what happens, while he had his hand in a backpack holding a knife. Austin pushed him one time, which to me, if someone says, touch me, see what happens, you're kind of provoking something, right? And after one push, Anthony stabbed him in the chest. After one push. Now, I would compare this to if somebody was asked you to leave someplace and they pushed you one time, would you take out a gun and shoot them in the chest? Probably not. That's not self-defense. Now, if for some reason suddenly Austin had been beating him down and then he pulls out a knife as an afterthought and protects himself with the knife, that would be self-defense. But a single push and a knife to the chest, does that seem like a reasonable self-defense of something? And also, one of the elements of self-defense is that you should have a reasonable fear of great bodily harm or self-defense. So I have to ask, if someone is telling you to move and your response is, touch me and see what happens, do you think that sounds like you're worried about great bodily harm? I'm just curious. Does that sound like you are in fear of great bodily harm? Touch me and see what happens while you have your hand on a knife, and when he does touch you, you stab him in the chest. Does that sound like you're in fear of great bodily harm? The size disparity means nothing when you're listening to what happens, right? So that's basically the case, right? And that's all these. The way I describe it is exactly how the jury trial has been described by the media. The witnesses for both the prosecution and the defense said that there was no scuffle, that Anthony was not surrounded, that the other brother wasn't even nearby when it happened, that there was no reason to be fear for his life. So a bigger kid tells you to move and pushes you. Does that fear for your life? So now I want to go to our friend Anthony Brian Logan, because he has a different take, and it's fair. He can have a different take. And this is just a short here. Here's the post. The Karmelo Anthony verdict of guilty in his murder case was a gross miscarriage of justice. Even if you don't agree with what Karmelo did, it does not reach the level of murder under the law. Well, let's see how he describes this, because I think he's got this wrong. Okay, so let's I'll expand this.
Karmelo Anthony has been found guilty of murder out there in Collin County, Texas, after the 2025 track meet incident in which he stabbed Austin Metcalf. Now, straight away, I'm gonna say it. This was a gross miscarriage of justice. Gross miscarriage of justice. This was not murder.
Yeah. He's going to explain why he thinks it was not murder. Now, I didn't know Texas law, what would count as murder, before I watched Anthony Brian Logan's video here. But let's see what he thinks murder is.
Whether you believe the stabbing was right or wrong, it doesn't matter. Let's talk about what the law says. The law says that you must intentionally or knowingly cause someone's death.
He just read it. He just read that sentence, and let's see how he interprets it.
This refers to when you get up in the morning and say, you know what, I'm gonna go take this man's life. When you pull out a gun, you shoot him, you're trying to rob him, carjack him, something like that. That's a murder. Man.
That's not what it says. That's not what it says. That's not what it says, Anthony. And like I said, I like ABL, but he's got this completely wrong. Then he's coming here and saying manslaughter. Well, then he's going to show you manslaughter. We're going to go back to both of these.
Manslaughter is when you do something reckless that causes someone to lose their life, like playing with a gun, it goes off and then somebody gets shot. Neither of those things happen here.
Yeah, I agree. At least the manslaughter part. He intentionally stabbed somebody. But let's see how he goes, where he goes, because he's going to try to claim it's self-defense.
So it wasn't even manslaughter. It's not even like, oh, well, give him manslaughter. Nah, this was self-defense. This is not guilty. Self-defense said.
Now, this is interesting. This is where he and I really split. Okay, but I'm going to go back to the rule of murder.
Is you must reasonably believe that you are at risk of great bodily harm or death.
Now, let's stop, because he's going to say why he thinks that that's the case. And I'm going to remind you why that is not the case. He didn't have a reasonable thought of great bodily harm or death. Okay, hang on.
Now, if you're 5'8", 130 pounds, here comes Austin Metcalf, 6 foot tall, 215 pounds, and it's his brother and maybe two more people.
What? No, not a single witness said anything about that. The brother wasn't nearby, according to the witnesses in this case. He was nearby enough to find out that his brother got stabbed and was dying, but he had anything to do with Anthony. And there were no two other people. This was not a bunch of people get ready to jump him. And regardless, he proved that he had no fear by what he said prior to stabbing Austin Metcalf. But anyway.
You feel like you're in danger, you're at risk.
How?
That's self-defense. Just like with Trayvon Martin.
Now, then he brings up a completely irrelevant case with completely different facts, which a lot of people are bringing up. Trayvon Martin and Kyle Rittenhouse. There are people bringing up all kinds of stuff. We'll see that as we go through some of these posts. This is completely irrelevant. In the Zimmerman case, he, according to testimony, was having his head bashed into the cement. He had fear of great bodily harm, thought he was going to die. There's no evidence that Karmelo Anthony had any fear of great bodily harm or death. Nobody testified to that. No one on the defense side testified to that. Nobody on the prosecution side testified to that. There was no evidence that he had fear of great bodily harm or death. And in fact, he was belligerent. And, look, maybe he had a right to be belligerent. Oh, who are you to tell me where I can sit? I can understand that. But his words, according to both sides' witnesses, were, touch me and find out. That's not any sign of fear of great bodily harm or death. He has his hand on a knife, one touch, stabbed in the chest. That's not great fear of bodily harm. That means you're prepared to do something to somebody if they touch you. And your actions showed that. And that's why, and look, I don't care the races of either of these kids. If it's two white kids, two black kids, two Indian kids, a black kid and a white kid and a black kid, it don't matter. There's no fear there. And in fact, probably had less fear because he knew he had a knife. And he used it in a manner that caused somebody to die.
Martin, Zimmerman said, I was getting beat up too much by Trayvon Martin.
It's completely irrelevant to the case at hand. Bringing up other cases that do not have the same facts mean nothing. This is a useless use of another case.
So I had to pull my gun and shoot him, and he beat it. There's been countless cases like this.
It
wouldn't matter the color. If it was two black kids attacking little white boy, and then he takes one of their life, oh well, because you can't go putting your hands on people, you can't go assaulting people, and then claim to be the victim. I don't know.
Again, that doesn't mean it's not that doesn't make it self-defense, Anthony. Doesn't make it self-defense.
Where they do that at. I don't know what part of the country you guys are in, what part of the world you guys are in.
So let's go back to this definition he gave of murder, though. Let's look at, and he put it on the screen and he read it. He should have been able to understand it. First of all, he's saying that he only seems to understand the word intentional, but does not seem to take into account the word or. Okay? A person commits an offense if the person, one, intentionally or knowingly causes the death of an individual. Did Karmelo Anthony intentionally or knowingly cause the death of an individual? Yes. He admitted it to the police when they got up to him. He said, did you stab? We're looking for the kid who stabbed somebody. He said, I did that. You know, is he okay? Well, it doesn't matter if he's okay. He's dying. He knowingly caused the death of an individual, or not and. So it doesn't intentional. Now, and then let's take into number 2, which he seems to have completely glossed over. There's more than just intentionally knowing cause of this, because you can intentionally or knowingly cause the death of a people or of an individual, and it could be self-defense. Okay, so part two intends to cause serious bodily injury and commits an act clearly dangerous to human life that causes the death of an individual. Does that apply here? Well, touch me and find out means you got with your knife on a hand in your backpack that you used to stab somebody in the chest, you intended to cause seriously bodily injury. Notice it doesn't say you intended to cause death. You intended to cause seriously bodily injury and commits an act clearly dangerous to human life, stabbing somebody in the chest with a knife, that causes the death of an individual. All happened. Okay? Now, the other one is commits or attempts to commit a felony other than manslaughter. And in the that's that is if, you know, like in the case of robberies, which just didn't apply. But both of those first two apply to Texas law. He intentionally, well, maybe not intentionally, but he knowingly causes the death of an individual and, touch me and find out, intends to cause serious bodily injury. Unless you think that if you pull out a knife and stab somebody, it's not going to cause bodily injury. I don't know why you would think that. You know a knife is much more dangerous than just being pushed one time. Commits an act of clearly dangerous to human life that causes the death of an individual. So those both apply. Now he goes on to his self-defense. Then he goes on to manslaughter. A person commits an offense if he recklessly causes the death of an individual. This doesn't apply. The offense under this section is a felony. The second degree, except that the offense is a felony in the first degree if it shows on the trial of the offense that the defendant committed offense under section 2809. I haven't looked that up. We could look that up. And that conduct has caused the death of individual. Well, yeah, doesn't necessarily apply, and the jury did not find him that. So I'm not so worried about that. Now, then he goes into self-defense. Okay. except as provided in subsection B, a person is justified in using force against another when and to the degree the actor reasonably believes, okay, to the degree the actor reasonably believes. So someone pushing you, you can use force, push them back to protect the actor against the other's use of attempted use of unlawful force. The actor's belief that the force was immediately necessary as described by the subsection is presumed to be reasonable of the actor. Again, he gave a part about where your fear of great harm or bodily injury. The evidence that he wasn't in fear of great harm or bodily injury was provoking the attack. Touch me and see what happens. And all the witnesses on both the defense and the prosecution said that happened. So it's really odd that, usually Brian thinks fairly logically. I don't think he's actually reading the law here, though. He's not paying attention to the word or. So that's interesting. Now he follows this up later on. Karmelo Anthony is found guilty of murder over a track meet dispute in Collin County, Texas. I am fully confident that he will beat this on appeal. I'm curious what the grounds of appeal are going to be. Certainly not on the law of murder. I'm not convinced that a 3.5-inch pocket knife used in a defensive manner is murder. Did the person die from that 3.5-inch pocket knife? Clearly, are you saying that you can't? Now, and he says in a defensive manner. Fascinating. Now, P's getting raked over the coals because most of his audience is on the right. And so a lot of people are raking him over the coals. What do you think would be and I asked him, what do you think would be the basis for the appeal? Hopefully not your misreading of the law, because you did misread the law of murder. But people are raking him over the coals for this. What is Lou Perez has a funny, he did this, a white ally response to the Karmelo Anthony verdict. Let's see what this is. This is probably, he tends to be sarcastic.
Like so many of you, I am so upset to hear about the ruling in the Karmelo Anthony trial in Texas. The young man was found guilty, and it hurts. I feel as though a knife has been driven right through my heart, and I don't know how I'm going to make it through the day, the week, the month, the rest of this year. I am so disgusted. I thought that we were past this. I was a child during the O.J. Simpson trial, and I remember when he was found not guilty because he acted in self-defense. O.J. Simpson was attacked by his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and Ron Goldman, and the jury came through and they said, no, this is an innocent man whose life was in jeopardy, and he defended himself, and that was that. And I thought that was the America that we were in right now, but apparently we're not. Apparently we are in America where no black man is safe. I don't know what to...
Okay, just so you know, Lou is mocking white liberals with this. He's not believing this.
I think all we could do now is take it to the streets.
He's a comedian.
And protect our brothers and sisters.
And then he puts that up. That's I guess something to do with fisting. Anyway, lose it. That's terrible. So whether or not, again, the length of the knife that killed somebody, he intentionally stabbed and caused bodily harm. I mean, obviously he was prepared to do that with the words. And it, had he, he may have been better off had he not said anything. Hello, TC, by the way. He may have been better off had he not said anything when he stabbed him. If he had not said that, then there'd at least be a question if he was thinking, had fear, he might be able to say that, but that's not the case here. So, And now there's a lot of people online that piss me off on the right too, because they're really making a lot of racist comments about this too. And it's pissing me off, to be honest with you. But let's find, where's the thing I was trying to find here? Why do I have two of those? That's not what I meant to do. Oh, I see what I did. I'm going to go back to the...
You must reasonably believe that you are at risk of great bodily harm or death.
Again, he says it right there. You must reasonably believe that you're in danger of great harm or death. What about that situation would have made him believe that he was in danger of great harm or death? And in fact, you said yourself, touch me and see what happens. You weren't fearful of. You were egging it on while you had your hand on a knife ready to stab somebody if he touched you. You can't claim self-defense if you invite someone to touch you. It makes no sense. So we're going to go down and just go through some of this, things that in the aftermath. Now, Elijah Schaffer, is he unnecessarily stirring up people? Let's see, Frisco, Karmelo Anthony, BLM protest is heating up outside the Frisco courthouse. Random supporters are approaching white people like myself and screaming at us. Lots of anti-white racial slurs being thrown around. Look, it's a very emotional and not logical reaction to what happened. And, the claim is that this is because he's black. And, I keep saying all white jury too. The jury was not all white. There were no black people brought up, but there were a couple Indian people because there's a large Indian population, as in immigrant Indians in Frisco, Texas. There are some Asian people on the jury. There just happened to be not a single black person on the jury. Let's see. I
don't have an opinion. I don't have an opinion here.
Just like Karmelo was doing. I'm glad you just said that. That's what Karmelo was doing. Protecting his motherfucking self.
I don't have an
Look, I don't know about that. Here's another one. Unhinged Karmelo Anthony supporters. What's this guy? This guy's trying.
The judge as well in this case said it was not a case about race, but you cannot deny that just the facts of the case and what we've seen play out since then and what we're happening now is because the defendant is black, the victim is white, and that's the bottom line. But again, this is what I alluded to when I said this was brought out.
All right. So anyway, so a lot of black people are very angry, but I'm telling you, it's not for logical reasons. Again, it doesn't matter if what the races of the players in this case are. You reverse them, they're the same verdict. It should be. Let's see.
What do you want us to do? What do you want us to do at this point? What? I'm lost for words. I don't know what to do. I got five boys. I don't know what. I ain't got nothing to tell them no more. You can't walk away no more.
Rest in peace, Trayvon Martin. Let me ask you this.
What? Okay, again, this is one of those, you can't walk away no more. Well, he didn't walk away. He stabbed somebody in the chest at the first touch. He didn't, there was no threat of great bodily harm. No one was beating on him. Okay, so what would you do? Tell him not to stab somebody just because they touched you. Let me move something here. I can't even handle Elijah Schaffer. He's being an idiot. And Nick Sorter, same. So he says the Black Panthers are trying to start a race war over this. What the fuck is this shit? I'm not excited about the conservatives out there antagonizing people either. It's like, it'd be a good idea just to get out of there. They wanted him to walk away. What is she talking about? Yeah, exactly.
Tell our kids the truth that this is a racist ass country. We gotta tell them the truth. Who don't get stop that cool ass shit?
Don't nobody want to hear about what we do to each other. We talking about what they doing to us. White folks kill white folks. Mexicans kill Mexicans. We ain't trying to hear no cool shit today. Go over there with them white folks with that. This is a racist ass country. We're in a racist ass state. This is a racist ass court. There ain't nothing else to talk about. When has a white boy been before an all black jury? Tell us, media. Tell us, white folks.
It wasn't an all-white jury.
When has a white boy been before an all black jury? Never.
How is it murder?
This is
Is
racist.
he
You know
asked,
why?
is he okay?
Because it's, you know what?
Well, whether you ask is he okay, again, the definition of murder under Texas law doesn't matter yet. He did the act knowingly, and the act caused the death of another person. That's what the Texas law is. So under Texas law, you know, I don't know if there's other laws that, hello, Helen, what's up? Or Kaylin, what's up? I don't know what else to tell you. Now, let's see. Witness statement to police. Okay, these witness statements confirmed what I said from the beginning about the Karmelo Anthony case. All lies, misinformation, grifters, and scammers will be exposed soon enough. Okay, what does he think this is? Witness statement number 1 to the police. Okay, let's see what's different here.
And this is a minor, a witness that was sitting under the Memorial High pop-up tent with his team near the victim, Austin Metcalf. The suspect, Karmelo Anthony, was from Centennial High and was sitting under the Memorial High tent. Austin told Karmelo that he needed to move out from under their team's tent. Karmelo grabbed his bag, opened it, reached inside, and proceeded to tell Austin, quote, "Touch me and see what happens." No one really thought Karmelo really had any weapons in his bag, and Austin proceeded to touch Karmelo. Then Karmelo told Austin to punch him and see what happens. A short time later, Austin grabbed Karmelo to tell him to move, and Karmelo pulled out what this witness recalled as a black knife and stabbed Austin once in the chest and then ran away.
Now, where was his great fear of bodily injury or deathly conflict? ABL says these witness statements confirm what I said from the beginning about this Karmelo Anthony case. You're saying it's self-defense. You're inviting someone to touch you so you can stab them. What is he talking about? Here, let me see this. Let's see hear the rest of this.
Let's talk about what that statement means. All sitting on the bleachers under a Memorial High tent when another male he did not know walked over and sat under the tent. That would be Karmelo Anthony. Austin told this male that since he didn't go to Memorial, he had to leave the tent. Austin and the male went back and forth. Then Austin stood up and pushed the male to get him out of the tent. During the time of the arguing, the male was reaching around in the bag that he had. It was at this time that the male took out the knife and stabbed Austin and then left the scene.
Again, you read what self-defense is. Fear of great bodily harm or death. Where is that in this case?
They're substantially the same, Mark, in terms of what they are saying. There are a few differences, but what's your take on whether or not, from those witness statements at the time that this happened, where do you think the jury would land on a case like this?
You know, it's fun. It's going to be a tough call. And I know that's an easy thing to say. You can't lose if you say you're in the middle. It's going to be a tough call for these reasons. When you actually do an analysis of self-defense, there are different components. You know, the argument that Karmelo Anthony was there and he shouldn't have been there. Well, that's okay, but it's not your bleachers. You don't get to throw people out because of a tent. That's an argument that you're going to see the defense make. Why did the eventual victim in this case decide that it was his role to kick him out? And then there's a tussling back and forth. And then, unfortunately, Mr. Metcalf did seemingly start the fight, so to speak, right? He was what we might call the aggressor.
Interesting. Oh, that's why he thinks so. Except, what did he leave out there? What did he leave out? He invited the aggression. Touch me and see what happens. While his hand's on a knife concealed in a bag. That's the difference. He skipped over that part. Self-defense is thank you, Avocados Diablo. Self-defense is an affirmative defense, which means to make the claim you have to admit to the facts of the case and that you are hoping your interpretation will win out. This being the case, you are basically hanging yourself if it fails to sway the jury. Yes, exactly. Thank you very much for sponsor the show. You are Video Stream Lab Superstar sponsor of the day. So it's interesting. He left out the part the witness said where touch me and see what happens. He invited the confrontation.
And pushing him out or grabbing him and touching him. So under Florida law and also Texas law, and when you're the aggressor, when you first start the fight, so to speak, you may lose the protection. If it was Karmelo who started it, Karmelo Anthony. Now we get to say shifted because if Metcalf was the one who started the fight, now can Anthony respond to defend himself? We know he can. And then, as was mentioned a moment ago, are you supposed to bring a knife to a fist fight? No. You're supposed to bring a gun to a fist fight? Absolutely not. But if you're there and starting to get attacked, which is what the defense is going to say, can you defend yourself? And what they're going to say is, Anthony doesn't need to wait until the first nasty strike, the first injury. He can presuppose what might happen, and he's allowed to defend himself.
Except you cannot invite the confrontation. He completely skipped that. Of course, ABL put this up. I'm not going to put it here. I'm not going to type that in there. So anyway, it wasn't an all-white jury either. So anyway, that's interesting. Notice how he completely glossed over the part of inviting the confrontation. He literally said, touch me and find out. If you're celebrating the Karmelo Anthony guilty verdict, you better not even think about celebrating Juneteenth. Go fuck yourself, Rev. Nobody's celebrating anything. Good God. Breaking Karmelo Anthony has been sentenced to 35 years in prison. He's found guilty of murder. If you agree with the Karmelo Anthony verdict, what race are you and what state are you in? What does it matter? The facts of the case. Oh my God, he's really on this though. This is his big thing right now. Now, interesting as I'm going down this. Black here, Tennessee, white Texas, hoping judges give him mercy and allows him another shot at life 20 years from now. Guilty as hell. I'm a black woman in Arizona. I'm black, lived in Philly since 2001. Been an attorney for over 20 years, both AD and private defense. There's zero doubt he was guilty. There's no gray area if you understand law. I don't agree. I'm half Moroccan and Jamaican. I need to ask if you believe it. I'm 50-50. He had a shit lawyer. Mel and his family failed to let that lawyer know he works for them. Mello shouldn't have had the knife on school property. He was assaulted. He should have went and got an adult or called the police. Austin should have kept his hands to himself. Doesn't matter. Agree. Black California. Easy. Slam dunk. Indigenous from Canada. The law is clear when talking about proportional force. I think murder 1 is maybe too much, but murder 2, absolutely. Well, different states do it differently. In some places, murder 1 is worse. In some places, murder 2 is worse. Premeditated murder in Texas, I think, is murder 3. So you got to go by what the laws of the place you're talking about. Black in Texas. White, right next to Collin County, actually surprised the verdict because the evidence pointed more towards manslaughter. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. He intentionally used the weapon, and that would be murder. Whether now had he not died, it would not have been murder. But he intentionally used the weapon. Part 2 of the murder law. I agree with the verdict. I'm Hispanic and from Texas. It wasn't white, black thing to me. The facts point where they did, and the jury made their verdict. Murder is murder. Bringing a weapon to school grounds is still bringing a weapon, no matter how many inches the blade is. If all you see is race, not one man murdering another with a knife, you are the racist. So it's a lot of people. Black, Florida agree. White, Massachusetts, Italian, and Czech. Okay, so anyway, that's interesting. Going down that thread. Let's see. Say his name, Karmelo. Karmelo's still alive, though. Let's think about this. Over $600,000 was raised on Give Send Go to Karmelo Anthony's legal defense fund, but instead of hiring a lawyer, he filed as indigent and got a public defender. I did not know that. I'm curious as to why. Then they raised almost $1 million, actually. Meanwhile, Dad's new Escalade, Karmelo's new Lexus, stacks of expensive sneakers, and the family moved into $1 million home. Nope, they already lived in the home. They lived in the rental home, and they had bought the Escalade prior to the event. State witnesses, Austin track teammate says Karmelo was asked to leave about 15 times. Prosecutor, did anyone try to gang up on him? No, sir. Now, Tariq Nasheed, of course, is going to have his take. Remember, Karmelo had a legal right to be under the tent, that tent. I guess. His utility blade was legal, okay, but to use it to kill somebody is not. He had a legal right to defend himself from assault. He wasn't defend himself, but he doesn't have a right to provoke the assault and stab somebody in the chest. The only person who broke the law that day was Austin Metcalf, who had no legal right to assault Karmelo. Well, no one's claiming that. Court TV panel melts down over Karmelo Anthony guilty verdict. What happened? It was a 4-inch knife. He used it one time. Well, whether he used it one time or 100 times, it's still death. Let's see what
I mean, I'm questioning the jury. I'm asking them, how did you reach your verdict? How did you reach it so quickly? What happened here? It was a 4-inch knife. He used it one time. He only used it one night. I'm not saying.
He had a gun. He only used it one time to shoot somebody in the head. What a stupid argument. What a stupid argument.
That it was right, but what are you doing? How did you get this verdict? I'd want to know. My whole identity as a defense attorney would be in question, right? I'm questioning my identity right now, and I have nothing to do with this case.
Because you're the guy who missed the part of provocation. Provocation. Touch me and see what happens while you have your hand on a knife. That's the part where people go, wait a minute. Wait a minute. He has his hand in the back. He's the only one who knows he has a knife in his hand when he says that. Touch me and see what happens. Clearly not in fear for his life because he knows he has a knife in his hand that he can stab somebody with. That's not fear for your life or bodily harm. You're showing no fear whatsoever. So you can't say it's self-defense. That's where people stumble on this. It can't be self-defense, deadly force as self-defense. If you have a knife in your hand, you tell somebody to touch me and see what happens.
How could you come back like that? I would be enraged. I'm enraged right now. This is very upsetting. And then on top of it, to compound it, this dumb judge didn't allow cameras in the courtroom. What was your wisdom? What were you thinking? How you put on a robe? Are you that much of an imbecile that you won't?
Interesting. Oh, it won't allow cameras in the courtroom. Well, I agree with that. I think there should be cameras in the courtroom. It could be some of the witnesses were minors. That's the only thing I can think of. But you can even block out minors.
Let cameras in the courtroom in a case like this. This is not a rape case. This is something different. This is something that's clearly the whole community is enraged, and you knew that before the trial started. So I mean, this is very upsetting.
Okay, well, he's not happy about it, but you're the one who didn't pay attention to the whole case. Just now, Karmelo Anthony supporter says Karmelo should have killed Austin's twin brother Hunter as well. And now the Karmelo group agrees with her. Well, don't care. They're venting. They're venting. Hi, Gen T. What up, Gen T? Been a minute. Wow, this guy went into here. Now, be a white kid. We are white and we can sit wherever we want. Sit under a tent of the high school you don't attend. Get asked to leave 15 times. Pulls out a knife. Stab black kid Karmelo Anthony in the heart in front of his brother. Brother's name is D'Angelo or something. Gets arrested. Claims self-defense. Well, shoot, we didn't do anything. White people defend him and donate hundreds of thousands of dollars to bail you out. White people claim he was being bullied as a justification. Go home, play Madden 27. If the roles were reversed, black people would be singing a different tune. Black people would defend murders, no matter how wrong they are, only because they're black. And this is a brother saying, fuck Karmelo. That's Andre Williams. He's very outspoken. Okay, let's go back to June 5th. Here's ABL again. The first day of Karmelo Anthony's murder trial addresses quite a few social media rumors and misinformation, including the infamous Memorial High School tent where Austin Metcalf unfortunately lost his life after being stabbed by Anthony. Let's just do the whole thing here. Let's do the whole thing. I'm curious what he was doing on the first day. I should go to his feed. We'll go directly to his feed in a minute.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about the Karmelo Anthony murder trial happening right now as we speak in Collin County, Texas, which is to the north and east of Dallas. And before I go too deep into it, may Austin Metcalf, the victim here, rest in peace and prayers out to his family. I do want to start with that straight away by showing my respects before we get into the details that have been revealed on the first day of the trial. And of course, we must do a recap to explain how we've gotten right here, right now, today. Let's go back. April of 2025, just last year, 14 months ago, Karmelo Anthony, who is the captain of the track team at Centennial High School in this area, was at a track meet at Memorial High School.
It wasn't at Memorial High School. Frisco has a stadium in the town that accommodates track meets for both of the two high schools in Frisco, Texas. But that's a minor detail. It's a minor detail.
Cav and his twin brother, these are football players at Memorial.
Also track athletes. That's a lot of people saying, oh, well, he wasn't supposed to be there. He's not a track athlete. Well, he's also on the track team. In fact, Karmelo Anthony was also a football player and a track athlete.
They are there with friends. Karmelo Anthony, at a certain point, goes to a tent branded with Memorial High School logos. He sees a friend. They begin to talk. The total time he was under this tent from when he got there to when the fight ended was 4 minutes, just 4 minutes.
I'm not sure where he's got that detail from. Again, the time doesn't matter. If he was asked 15 times to leave, so he's asked 15 times to not be under their tent in 4 minutes because their coach said not to have anyone else under our tent. We have a bunch of our stuff here. Does it matter how long he was there? Does that a factor? But apparently ABL is going to make that a factor.
At some time during those 4 minutes, Austin Metcalf and at least 3 of his friends or more approached the tent. There's a confrontation about whether or not.
Okay, now these are details that were not in the trial. Approach the tent. What does that mean? They weren't surrounding him. and both the defense and prosecution witnesses agreed to the facts.
Karmelo Anthony should be there. A fight happens. There's pushing.
There was no fight. Didn't turn into a fight. Okay. He says he watched the first day of the trial. What fight happened? He's adding details that do not exist.
Shoving. We'll talk about who did what to who in a minute. But the way it ends is with Karmelo producing this 5-inch knife and stabbing Austin Metcalf one time in his chest. He dies. And again, rest in peace. There's quite a few details that I did not mention, and there's quite a few details that we have just learned. And before I go any further, let's just roll.
Answer your question, Old Guy Gamer. Are all school properties considered weapon-free zones? Yeah, in theory. Again, this is an off-campus school property. He's not supposed to have the weapon at the track meet. Let's just put it that way.
Some clips. Of course, I will link to everything in the box if you want to see it and hear it without my commentary. If you're on IG, Facebook, etc., visit a link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Had a tent. Is that important? Is the reason that he was under that tent important when we had this issue of the prosecution saying he went there to provoke a murder?
Look, Julia, I can't agree with you more. I mean, it's raining out. There's a tent. You seek shelter. I don't think that the fact that his school did not have a tent has anything to do with it. There was a tent. It was raining. He went there. And we just found out during the opening statements that he actually had a friend in the tent that he met and spoke to. So it's not like, there's no tent and he went there with the forethought.
Now, it's interesting because he's going to play the court TV reaction to this. Are we going to get the whole story on the clip he gave or not? Probably not.
To start a fight, provoke a fight, and stab somebody.
Let's pause right there. Now, the friend, from what I've been able to see, was a friend of his girlfriend, who is still his girlfriend right now. So he knew somebody there. They're having the chat. They're having the conversation. Okay. So when the prosecution says he went to the tent to try and provoke a murder.
No. Prosecution never said, no. It's interesting because that's this guy's interpretation, but the prosecution isn't claiming that he went there to provoke a murder. That's not what he's claiming. So that's that's false information right there. That's not what happened. Okay. That's at least none of the reports I saw said anything like that. They didn't go there to provoke a murder. You're going, see, now again, this is the reason when he reads the law incorrectly, he's saying premeditated murder. Well, of course it's not premeditated murder. Murder doesn't have to be premeditated. Okay. And that's not what the law says in that Texas statute he read.
That doesn't make any sense if you knew somebody right there and you're talking to him. It's a high school track meet on the bleachers. You see your friend and you talking. That's not going to provoke a murder.
I just don't see this.
This is irrelevant. that has nothing to do with it, at least under the law.
This tent has anything really to do with anything.
Yeah, that was new information that came out about why he was under the tent. The defense saying he had friends there. The state didn't mention anything about that. Joanna, the state did start with surveillance video that was very grainy. Up until this point, no one in the public has been able to see it outside of reporters who were able to go and look at it, take notes, handwritten notes, and then tell their viewers or their readers about what they saw. And now we're in the same situation because there are no cameras inside of that courtroom. What do you think about?
Yeah, they're really salty. Court TV, probably very salty that there's no cameras in the courtroom. Just why? Well, what are they called? They're called Court TV. So this is what they do. And so I'm sure they're upset that there's no cameras in the courtroom. It's the fourth time I've heard it mentioned by them.
The prosecution really hanging their hat on this surveillance video.
My understanding of the video is that it's difficult to make out like clear pictures of what's going on, but I do think that it might highlight if there was chaos at the scene, how many people were around, and kind of shed some light, maybe even for the defense, on what was going through Karmelo's mind at the time.
And what the witnesses stated, and using the video, stating that he was not surrounded by people harassing him. Okay, so I guess we'll probably not get to that either.
When this incident occurred, because really what it boils down to was, did he perceive a threat in that moment?
A threat of great bodily harm or death. A threat of great bodily harm or death. Don't not just a threat. A threat of great bodily harm or death. per the statute.
That he might be subjected to some serious bodily injury or death.
Oh, okay, she says it.
It brings to mind this case, Raul Valle.
That's the problem. There's no evidence that he was in fear of great bodily harm or death. Not when you tell somebody, touch me and see what happens while you have your hand on a knife. I'm pretty sure that's where it came down to the jury on whether or not it was self-defense. That's probably why. And look, God, it sucks to this kid because this is a good kid who made a really stupid decision, and now is going to be in prison. Okay, this is not some thug kid out running the streets. He's high grade student, A- student, plays football and track. He's a smart kid. But he does something really dumb because of attitude.
Now, pay attention right here. Okay, this case right here is very important. Before she gets into it, I want to set it up. Because from what I've been able to read, what I've been able to hear, he was approached by 4 people. Now, the confrontation might have been between him and Austin Metcalf. The physicality may have been one-on-one, but he was approached by 4 people. So when you're approached that way, and a fight happens, you're thinking I'm about to get jumped.
Again, what fight? There was no fight. There was no fight. And if it's one person and you tell them, touch me and see what happens while you have your hand on a knife, do you think that he knew he was going to use the knife that nobody could see? He egged on the physicality.
I'm in serious danger. Okay, so keep that in mind when she tells you this case.
Raul Valle, where he was surrounded by a group of people. He ends up using a knife and stabs some of the victims there, and one of them dies. And he was acquitted of these charges, the top charges, because of his perceived fear in that moment, or his perceived threats. And I think
in that case, there were 4 people attacking him. That's completely different facts. That was not the case in this case. It's a different set of facts.
This video, as grainy as it may be, may actually shed some light on the commotion and the activity that was taking place, and how that impacted Karmelo's thinking.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There we go. Okay. And shout out to Court TV for that video. Again, shout out to Court TV. Now, this right here is a reporter, again, for Court TV, talking a little bit more about what's going on. And of course, again, everything will be in the box for your convenience. Let's go.
But his opening statements were definitely powerful on either side. In the opening statement, they were referencing surveillance video. And, of course, everyone wanted to see video. We haven't seen anything. There's been a gag order on this case since the very beginning last year. So they start playing this video. There are 5 different angles of the video getting walked through from testimony by the forensic video analyst. And they were very wide-angle videos, Julia, and the witness had to talk about how he had to use this software to zoom in and try to make the video as clear as possible. And even then, Julia, I won't lie, it still looked very fuzzy and hazy. It definitely sets the scene. You can see what's going on, but even the prosecution distinctly said that you won't be able to uniquely identify anyone, but they referred to Karmelo on the video as the person of interest, and they referred to Austin Metcalf as the victim. Of course, as the forensic analyst has digested this video and dissected it and pointed out everything that we need to know, going through shoes and the type of clothing they were wearing. So we identified who each person was in the video, even though they kind of just looked like humanoid blobs. But you see, one thing that stood out to me, Julie, is that, I'm very familiar with track meets. I was under the impression that, when you go to a championship track meet, you have multiple tents on the same side of the bleachers. But in this video, because it's early in the morning, just before 10 a.m. when all this happened, the high school where all this went down, Memorial High School, it was just an isolated tent. And
let's pause right there. So it's just one tent. There's a lot of reports focusing on the tent. We just played the video a little while ago talking about the tent. That's not really a factor. And he knew somebody under the tent. So that's not really a thing like, oh, you're in my tent, get out my tent. Anyway.
Well, of course, also during the trial, during the trial, it was revealed that the school that Anthony is from did not bring their tent for some reason. And during the relay, they went into the dugout of the baseball field. Okay. And then they were asked to leave the dugout of the baseball field. Now, we don't know why, but still, they weren't the only schools there. I think there were 3 schools, and 2 of them had tents. 1 did not.
It was just one tent.
In the bleachers by itself, there were no surrounding, schools or anything in the general area. You saw some schools walking in, but I guess, the meet was just starting. But anyway, they identified.
So other teams hadn't put their tents up yet. Is that what it was? Because obviously it was at the closest school, which was Memorial. So they already had their tent up. The other teams were just coming into the meet.
Karmelo walking up the bleachers, kind of walking towards the tent. He kind of goes towards someone, and you see him standing there for a couple of minutes. Then you see Austin Metcalf, his twin brother, and his friends walking up and getting under the tent. And then once everything's happening under the tent, it just kind of looks like a blob of people. You can't really make out anything that's really going on for 5 to 6 minutes. And then you see a quick to and from. And they were implying that was like the push, the initial contact. You can't really see anything happening. Before then, you see people walking by. They're not really, turning heads as if something's loud and, something's catching their attention. But all of a sudden,
you mean there wasn't a fight? there wasn't a fight that ABL keeps talking about. Sounds like there wasn't a fight.
That to and from, and then you see Karmelo, or who they identify as person of interest, who we're assuming to be Karmelo Anthony. He runs out from under the tent, and then he's running down the bleachers, sprinting a ways away from the tent and out of the stadium onto the track and everything towards one of his coaches. And eventually after that, we see another angle of the video where Karmelo's been taken into custody by police. But the reaction, Julia, it wasn't a visceral reaction. When you saw the to and from, of course, that's the stabbing action.
Oh, so there was no fight. There was a push and a stab, and it's over. Because he's talking about a fight, like a bunch of people jumped in, like a bunch of people jumped him. Apparently that didn't happen.
If you will, all I saw him sitting 2 rows behind Austin Metcalf's father, and his head was just kind of in his hands, kind of like this. Wasn't necessarily crying, but just implying that he doesn't really want to see, even though you can't see the stabbing, but he knows in his mind this is the moment that his son lost his life. So he was just there, obviously overwhelmed by everything. I'm sitting right behind the Metcalf family. Karmelo Anthony's family's on the opposite side of the courtroom. But again, the video, not as impactful as I thought, but it definitely is a scene.
So not as impactful as you thought is that it doesn't show a bunch of people attacking one kid.
Setter to help us understand clearer as to what's going on, since we haven't seen anything so far in this case.
All right, there we go. Shout again to Court TV. Now, again, Court TV, we have some witness statements that kind of goes to the whole situation, because really what happened, this was a fight over this whole tent situation, and it looked like Karmelo thought he was...
I'm not sure why he keeps describing it as a fight. I don't know if that helps. It doesn't, if it was a fight, it was one push, one stab, and it's over. Again, where is he going to come up with the fear of great bodily harm or death if it was provoked? And because now we just watched this one, right? We would just watch this one. Let's see if he finds the thought that Karmelo Anthony kind of provoked it with his words, if he's going to notice that or not. Let's see if he notices that.
Going to get jumped because you're being approached by not just the twin brothers. And
and also, why would you assume that you're going to get jumped? Why would you assume that? What indicators would be of, are you going to get jumped? I wonder what those are.
If you are going to fight and your twin brother is right there, you're not going to fight by yourself.
Why would you assume that? How do you know? You're making stuff up. You're speculating on things that you have no idea. You're making assumptions that are not in fact the case.
The person is getting the better of your twin. You're going to jump in and try to break. Like you're not going to probably fight by yourself.
That never came.
But it was not just them two. It was at least 2 more, and there was more people. But one of them, from what I was able to see, was distracting one of the coaches while the other ones went up into the tent and did what they did. Okay.
What does that mean? Were they doing a premeditated attack on Karmelo Anthony? Is that what are you implying here? Hi, Renee. What's up?
So we have witness statements from 2 or 3 people, I believe. Check it out.
And this is a minor, a witness that was sitting under the Memorial High pop-up tent with his team near the victim, Austin Metcalf. The suspect, Karmelo Anthony, was from Centennial High and was sitting under the Memorial High tent. Austin told Karmelo that he needed to move out from under their team's tent. Karmelo grabbed his bag, opened it, reached inside, and proceeded to tell Austin, quote, "Touch me and see what happens." No one really thought Karmelo had any weapon.
Whoa, that ABL. Did you not hear that? Why did you stop the tape? You should have stopped right there. But let's see what he says about that. I'm curious now. Why he skipped over that?
In his bag, and Austin proceeded to touch Karmelo. Then Karmelo told Austin to punch him and see what happens.
So you're given one warning, you refuse to adhere to it.
One warning? So it's just a warning. You don't think it's a provocation? Now, granted, Austin didn't have any business touching him. I'm not even saying he did. But the idea that you are, again, self-defense is fear of great bodily injury or death. Clearly, Karmelo Anthony had zero fear of Austin Metcalf by his words. Because he knew he had a knife. He's the only one who knew he had a knife.
Okay, you touch me, and then you do it again, and then something happens.
You do it again, and then you get stabbed in the chest with a knife? You're glossing over this, ABL. You're glossing over this for some reason. I don't get it.
A short time later, Austin grabbed Karmelo to tell him to move, and Karmelo pulled out what this witness recalled as a black knife and stabbed Austin once in the chest and then ran away.
Let's pause. You cannot put your hands on people because you think they are in the wrong place.
You cannot stab somebody in the chest with a knife, a weapon, a concealed weapon, because they put their hands on you. That's not self-defense. Again, fear of great bodily harm or death. Why would you egg someone to touch you if you had fear of great bodily harm or death? That's the problem that everyone has here. And I am completely sad that this good kid did something so monumentally stupid that he's going to be in prison. Because by all accounts, he's a good kid, but he did something really stupid. Now had he punched Austin in the mouth or broke his nose or something, I wouldn't give a shit. But you killed somebody because you had no fear of somebody. That's the self-defense part that ABL is missing here.
If you think somebody's in the wrong seat, they're in the wrong place, you need to go get an authority figure. Go get a coach.
I agree 100%. I'm not saying Austin Metcalf was in the right for touching the kid. But that's not what the trial's about. This is not self-defense because someone touched you. There's no struggle here.
Get the teacher, somebody. You can't do that. You cannot do that. Now, we can squabble about whether the knife was an overreaction, but the nexus of the comfort.
No, it wasn't an overreaction. It was a premeditated action. You told him, touch me and see what happens while you reach in your bag for the knife. It's not an overreaction. He planned the action, and that's why he's going to jail. That's why there's a guilty verdict. Thank you, Rachel Nelson, for dropping a deuce 22 in the tip jar, who says, Same things always devolve down to tribal lines. Just human nature, sadly. The vast majority of humans do not possess the IQ and critical thinking to be outside looking in. ABL unfortunately wants to defend his race first and foremost before the facts. Kumbaya. Well, I don't know. That's not normally ABL's. That's not ABL's way. ABL usually looks at the facts of cases. You know, it's not typical of him to just defend somebody because they're black. He has no problems not, you know, calling bullshit. But in this one, it's really this one he's just got wrong, and I don't know why. Maybe he gets enough flack from other black people to say, you know, he's to try to find a way to this one to work, but he's got this one completely wrong. Thank you, Horatio. Greatly appreciated. But he's got this one wrong because he's missing. He refuses to see that element. Okay, he read you the law on what self-defense is, but can't see why this would not be self-defense. Why Karmelo Anthony had no fear of injury or great bodily harm, based on what was happening, because he was dealing one-on-one with somebody. And he had a concealed weapon and egged him on, invited him to touch him. Was Austin in the right? Nope. Probably shouldn't have touched him at all. Go get a coach. Go get his, you know, whatever.
Confrontation was when you grabbed this man and tried to throw him out of the tent. You can't do that. You cannot do that.
Let's talk about what that statement means. All sitting on the bleachers under a Memorial High tent when another male he did not know walked over and sat under the tent. That would be Karmelo Anthony. Austin told this male that since he didn't go to Memorial, he had to leave the tent. Austin and the male went back and forth. Then Austin stood up and pushed the male to get him out of the tent. During the time of the arguing, the male was reaching around in the bag that he had. It was at this time that the male took out the knife and stabbed Austin and then left the scene.
So those facts aren't really any different, just from a different angle. So anyway.
They're substantially the same, Mark, in terms of what they are saying. There are a few different.
Okay, but again, this is where this guy completely dismisses the part where he said, touch me and see what happens, meaning he had a knife in his hand and knew what he was going to do if Austin touched him. That's the part they keep glossing over, and I'm going to see. Obviously, ABL didn't notice that either, because he didn't mention it in the first place.
Okay, there's more to that. There's more from his opinion, but you get the idea. Okay, you got two witness statements basically saying the same thing. It's all over this whole tent situation. Ultimately, if you think somebody's in the wrong seat, you're a student, he's a student, you think he's in the wrong seat, you need to go get somebody. You can ask him, and if he says no, you don't have the right to put your hands on him. That's called bullying. And you can't do that.
Okay, that's a term used here for, I don't know, dramatic purposes. I don't know. Again, the part that he missed though, is there was no fear of great bodily harm or injury or death for the self-defense part. He provoked, and then when the person he provoked followed through with it, he knew he had a knife in his hand and he stabbed him. There's no way he didn't know he had a knife in his hand when he said the words, touch me and see what happens, when his hand in the bag on the knife, because it instantly happened. There was no time for a fight. He pushed him and stabbed.
That now the whole knife situation, the way it's going to play out in court is if he was in fear of his life or great bodily injury.
Now, where is that, ABL? That's what you're missing. There was none. There wasn't even time for that.
And if you think you might get jumped by these two big 6 foot tall, 220.
The other witnesses also said that the brother wasn't anywhere near him at the time. It wasn't like 5 guys are standing over this guy and staring down at him. That's not what happened. And as I was listening to what the other witnesses' statement that came out that were reported, as you know, this has been going on. None of them said that. Maybe ABL is imagining that. Of course, this is from the first day, so he probably hadn't heard other testimony from that day. But still, even the post after the guilty verdict indicate that he completely dismissed that little element of fear of great bodily harm or injury that probably wasn't there.
25-pound football players, when you're 5'8", 130 pounds.
You can't assume that they're going to fight you, though. Why would you assume they're going to fight you? That's, again, you have this knife ready no matter what. Would it have been better if it was another guy who was 5'6" and 140 pounds? Again, you're adding stuff into it that isn't there, that nobody testified to.
And not just them two, but it was 2 more, plus more he was.
You're adding stuff that nobody testified to. This is a one-on-one verbal confrontation.
Was walking with. You're not trying to get beat up. You're not trying to get stomped out. And there was other reports that said
you're trying not to get beat up, not trying to get stomped out. Well, if that were the case, wouldn't you just walk away instead of inviting someone to touch you and start swinging a knife immediately? That doesn't make sense. That's not logical.
He was trying to escape, but he couldn't, and then now he's being grabbed.
What? Wait, whoa. Wait a minute. He was trying to escape, but he couldn't. Again, you're making up facts.
In the wrong seat, you need to go get somebody. You can ask him, and if he says no, you don't have the right to put your hands on him. That's called bullying. That's called bullying, and you can't do that. Now, the whole knife situation, the way it's going to play out in court is if he was in fear of his life or great bodily injury.
No indication of that.
And if you think you might get jumped by these 2 big 6 foot tall, 225-pound football players when you're 5'8", 130 pounds, and not just them 2, but it was 2 more, plus more he was walking with.
He's claiming that there are these people surrounding. There's no witness for the prosecution or the defense that claimed that. Now, again, this is before the rest of the testimony came out. This is before the defense witnesses testified. But by his reaction after the verdict, I'm assuming he hasn't changed his mind on this.
Trying to get beat up. You're not trying to get stomped out. And there was other reports that said he was trying to escape, but he couldn't. And then
what report? Okay, again, this is someone who made something up on the internet who said that he tried to escape, and the guy was holding him, and he wouldn't, let go. That's not it.
Now he's being grabbed. So now I'm in danger. If you think that you are at risk for great bodily harm, you can do that and you can beat it. So we're going to see. I think the prosecution is really thirsty and really ridiculous, talking about he went to the tent and try and provoke a murder. Really?
That's not what he said. That's not what the prosecution said at all. But again, you're saying that interpretation because of your misreading of the law. Your misreading of the law, ABL. This is wild.
If he's sitting there talking to his friend and it's raining and it's the only tent available, how is that him going to the tent and try to provoke a murder?
No, it makes no sense. Instead he's trying to provoke a murder. You can have a murder without going somewhere to do it. It's not that you're talking about premeditations to go murder someone specifically, which is in Texas. I think that's 3rd degree murder. Okay, I think they go backwards. It's not like it's not a premeditated. Okay, you're reading the law wrong.
The prosecution here, they're going to take an L on this case. In my humble opinion, I believe he's going to beat it. It's unfortunate that Austin Metcalf is dead, and again, rest in peace, prayers out to his family. But we can't ignore when people do something to somebody and then there's a reaction that happens. You can't ignore that.
Yeah, but it wasn't a reaction. It was a predetermined reaction. Touch me and see what happens. While you have your hand on a knife in your bag is a predetermined action. It's not a reaction. Scroll down. Karmelo Anthony verdict shows America is not safe for black people. Wait a minute. What? We as a community need to move to majority black countries. I'm staying right where I'm at, honey. And there's some stupid people at the trial. This racist piece of crap at the Karmelo Anthony trial is Isis Adeline, something like that. She's 22 and she's must be a really lonely, pathetic, hateful person. Make her famous. Make sure she never works anywhere and has to deal with people who. Okay, let's see what she. There are some idiots there. Just because Kratz said it doesn't mean it's always wrong. Let's see what this dumbass says.
Fucking chimping out. Just niggered them everywhere.
Okay, this bitch can go to hell. She's stupid too. She's stupid. She's just going there to agitate. Karmelo Anthony, the news is not telling the full story. How are you finding out about it if it's not telling the full story? You can't find out about it if you don't hear the whole story. Okay, this is someone who has their opinion.
Media is intentionally doing dishonest reporting about what is going on in the trial of Karmelo Anthony. They're conveniently not going into the details and the inconsistencies in the witnesses' testimony, but luckily I was able to find somebody on Reddit who was actually detailing what each of the
Yeah, somebody on Reddit probably has the transcript, right? Yes, the great internet telephone game. Let's see what they found. Let's see what they found.
Witnesses were testifying to. So allow me to paint you the picture of what I believe actually happened. I went through each of the witnesses' testimonies, and it's very clear that not everybody had a clear picture of what happened. So on the day of the stabbing, it started pouring down rain, which caused a delay in the track meet.
It was light rain. She's already getting this wrong. It wasn't pouring down rain. There was a rain delay, and the track meet hadn't started yet, and the thunderstorm had not come into the area. The heavy rain came later. Pouring down rain. Interesting.
Very common for athletes, and each of the schools seemingly brought their own tents and set them up so that the people could sit underneath them. Karmelo's coach testified that they did not have a tent, that it was actually coming later with a second bus, and they didn't have enough students to justify bringing a tent at that moment, so they didn't have a place to shelter from the rain. Anthony apparently was friends with one of the kids from the tent. Several people saw he and Anthony dap up, greeting each other, and seemingly Karmelo Anthony, while he was in the tent, made some joke about "y'all are ass," referring to their football team. The friend, who weirdly enough denied kind of how close his relationship was with Karmelo Anthony, said that it was
a friend of his girlfriend's. Was it? He knew him, but was it a close relationship? What does that matter? What does that matter?
Joke. And by the way, Karmelo Anthony is not only the captain of the track team, but he was also captain of the football team.
Okay, yeah, he was a good kid. Okay, and?
His senior year had been cut short because he had had an injury, a very severe one, and his shoulder was messed up. He had to wear a sling for part of the year.
Okay, this is irrelevant. He's a good kid. I acknowledge he's a good kid. He made a good kid who did something stupid.
They also don't mention that Karmelo Anthony was already in the tent before the Metcalf twins entered it. It wasn't
okay. Who? What? Everyone knows that. Who hasn't said that? That's been said since the beginning.
Until the Metcalf twins came to the tent that they seemed to be the ones who had a problem with him being there. And it's pretty inconsistent across the 9 witnesses from the incident about where Austin's brother even was during this.
The 9 witnesses also all said that they'd asked him to leave about 15 times. From both the prosecution and the defense. There was really no disparity between the defense and the prosecution witnesses that they used, which is weird. It's kind of weird. The defense couldn't find one witness who said something different. That was weird. Okay.
Some said that he was right next to his brother. Some said that he was in the back of the tent. Some said that he was a couple bleachers
So
down.
they didn't know where. So they can't remember where exactly the brother was. What does that matter? This wasn't between. The brother wasn't involved.
Witness said that they heard Anthony say, "I'm a nobody," when students were asking why he was under their tent. And there doesn't seem to be any consistency on what the words Anthony was saying. And while they're trying to say that Anthony is the aggressor, the person that he was in there seeing literally thought it was funny and he took out his phone and pretended to record it. I personally don't believe that. No teenager
You personally not believing it don't mean shit. What you again? This is internet. This is internet telephone. Okay, so you're going to hear her opinion on a video on a TikTok, and then you're going to go, oh yeah, I remember what she said. So she said this, so it must have been that. Okay, whatever.
Pretends to record things, especially since one of the witnesses said that after the incident, students were passing around a phone and looking at Anthony's Instagram page, which doesn't make sense. You wouldn't just pass the phone around. You would just ask for the handle and you would go to his Instagram page. What I think they were passing around was the video. I think there was a video and they deleted it because it would have looked bad on Austin. I say that because this person that Anthony was talking to didn't step up and say to the guys, hey, he's with me, we're just hanging out talking. And Karmelo's lawyer had to show a bunch of photos of the two together hanging out. They even hang out 3 times in a 3-week period, so they knew each other pretty well. It's clear that Austin specifically did not want Anthony in the tent and was ganging up on him. I think
Ganging up on him. Not even the prosecution witnesses said that.
They all were, because both Anthony and Metcalf were frustrated and escalated, according to one of the witnesses. And mind you, there is no policy that these kids can't be in each other's tent. And in fact, there are supposed to be coaches at every tent because it's a bunch of teenagers that have nothing to do.
Again,
so where was
this doesn't change anything yet. If there's anything that she says changes the case, let me know.
Adults, in my opinion. And it didn't start out as a big deal because Austin Metcalf sat down on the bleacher in front of Anthony, which sounds honestly aggressive. He came in, he started antagonizing him, he sat down next to him, they started calling each other bitch. And nobody is consistent with the shoving part. Some say it was a small one-handed shove. Another witness said, and I believe this is the true story, that there was minor pushing for a couple of minutes. That both Austin Metcalf and Karmelo Anthony were angry and aggressive. Several witnesses say that they didn't believe Anthony when...
Okay, and again, I want to know where the fear for great bodily harm and death comes in.
He was bluffing, but Metcalf and Anthony were frustrated and it escalated, and some called the shove a nudge. And one of the witnesses, turns out, told the cops that Anthony had told a joke and that Metcalf had pushed on Anthony in a lineman move, which is an inward and upward motion. Some of the witnesses said that both of the Metcalf brothers were ganging up on Anthony. And I think these kids have a very skewed perspective of what defending them was, because they said that Anthony said, "You're not going to move me, you're a..."
Okay, this is all from a Reddit post. Now I can't wait to see the transcript of the trial.
The witness told the jurors Austin was defending us. That's not defending you. I think y'all went through a very traumatic effect, and you can't come to terms with the fact that I think your friend was the aggressor. But you can't say that he deserved it. So obviously this guy has to be the perpetrator. It has to be his fault. It has to be a murder. Some of the kids were giving...
Again, this is this goes to the definition of murder in Texas, and it goes to, how is this provoked?
Different statements to the police last year, right after it happened, like not mentioning the cursing. Another witness characterized Austin's putting his hands on Karmelo as a warning. The witnesses across the board all pretty much agreed that this lasted 4 to 6 minutes. If someone is harassing you for 4 to 6 minutes, as a woman, I too would be grabbing my backpack and unfolding the blade in there because things were progressing. This witness said...
Really? So you're going to stay there? If this were the case, if this is going 4 to 6 minutes, you would stay there and pull out a knife? That's weird. That's weird.
That Austin Metcalf tried to force Anthony out. After Metcalf put his hands on him, that's when he got stabbed. If this had been an actual problem and not just a couple of kids bullying the black kid they didn't know under their tent, then they would have gone and gotten an adult that should have fucking been there to begin with.
True.
And that is very obvious on cross-examination of a witness when the lawyer said if Anthony and a friend were outside of the tent, what was wrong with that? And the witness, who was also on the football team and was part of this little group, said it was because of the proximity to the tent. But every witness who saw...
Wait, what? Anthony and a friend were outside the tent. They didn't say he was outside of the tent, though. No, I haven't heard that before either.
The stabbing said that Karmelo was sitting on the bleachers and that Metcalf was standing up and pushing him. Anthony never got out of his seat. And not only that, the wound and the blade prove that he did not even try to stab him. He just held it out and Austin went on the blade.
Okay. Wait a minute. The initial statement by Anthony when the police caught out to him, still there at the track meet, when he said, yes, I stabbed him. He touched me. I stabbed him. The blade was just there and he jumped on it. This is wild. This is wild. Now, whose witness was this? Was this a defense? This is the first time I heard this one. I can't wait to see the transcripts of this trial.
You know how I know this? Because the blade itself is 3.5 inches long. Everyone said that Austin leaned in to push him and Karmelo stabbed him.
I'm gonna run that back a little bit here because I'm trying to process what she's saying here.
That Metcalf was standing up and pushing him. Anthony never got out of his seat. And not only that, the wound and the blade prove that he did not even try to stab him.
How does the wound and the blade prove that? The wound and the blade prove that he did not try to stab.
He just held it out and Austin went on the blade. You know how I know this?
What had happened was I was cleaning my knife and Austin just jumped on it. What is she talking about?
Because the blade itself is 3.5 inches long. Everyone said...
What does that have to do anything?
Said that Austin leaned in to push him and Karmelo stabbed him. There's no dispute about that. Anthony was sitting, Austin was standing over him, getting ready to shove him, and he goes into the blade. So if the blade was 3.5 inches and the wound was 2 inches deep, people, what does that mean? It means he...
No. See, now there's where she's getting something wrong. The wound wasn't 2 inches deep. The wound went 2 inches into his heart. That's what the autopsy said. It didn't say that the wound only went in 2 inches. It went 2 inches into his heart. Your heart is not immediately below your sternum here. So if it's a 3-inch blade, you got about 1 inch before you hit your heart. So she doesn't, holy shit.
He could not have stabbed at him as Austin was leaning in to shove him. Austin had to have been the one who fell on the blade. I'm sorry, but it seems pretty obvious.
You know, if the blade were never there, he wouldn't have stabbed himself.
Obvious to me, like, this is self-defense. How could Anthony be the aggressor if he never fucking moved from his seat? That is literally stand your ground. And all of this could have...
No, it's not. Oh my God. Oh my God. It is not.
Been avoided if he had just minded his own business or gotten his coach. And the prosecutor kind of proves my point when he asked the doctor if there were any defensive wounds on Austin, and there were none. He already had his hands out to push him. He crossed that fist.
Okay, she doesn't seem to understand what that means. She doesn't know what that means. If there's one stab and there's no defensive wound on Austin, it doesn't mean anything. There was one stab. God damn. This is so dumb.
Physical boundary and fell on that knife. There is never a situation when a person is sitting down and a person is standing up, physically impeding you, that person is not the aggressor. And if this was the opposite, this wouldn't have even been a trial. I have a feeling the defense is going to tell us that there is a documented history of aggression with Austin. Let's face it, the prosecution is resting on racism in this case. That's exactly why they struck all of the black jurors. They are just hoping that they will just gloss over all the inconsistencies in this story, because not a single person out of the 9 witnesses that were there had a consistent story. And that's what the media is not telling you.
Very interesting. Let's hear. Krassenstein, biased jury and corrupt judge. Okay, it can't be that
Karmelo Anthony was just.
It can't be that the jury just came to a conclusion. It has to be a biased jury and a corrupt judge.
Karmelo Anthony was just found guilty of murdering Austin Metcalf. This is a biased jury and corrupt judge. We all know it. No, let's go back.
How do we all know it?
That's what Republicans would say if this went the other way. I'm going to say right here, flat out, that law and order worked. Our court system and judicial system is working. Unlike the other side, we shouldn't jump to the conclusion that the jury is biased or the judge is biased or corrupt merely because the side we thought was going to win didn't win. Just like all cases, he's going to have the opportunity to appeal it. And if the appellate court thinks he's...
Appellate? Can he not read his own script? Appellate! Dummy.
Guilty, then he's going to remain guilty. Karmelo.
Okay, that's interesting. He did a little switcheroo on us there. He just did a little switcheroo. Pastor Ben, useless. Karmelo Anthony did what he had to do to get away from a racist ass, violent ass, harassing ass, assaulting ass, cocky ass white boy who thought he could assault a black child. Karmelo Anthony's older than Austin. Karmelo Anthony was a senior. Austin was a junior. But assault a black child. And there's no evidence that he is racist. There's nobody except for the spectators around the courtroom that said that this was about race at all. His black teammates testified on his behalf. Good God. Karmelo Anthony being found guilty is an exact representation of black boys never being afforded the luxury to make a mistake, as it is clearly in today's society they are not afforded the same empathy that many Caucasian males are. To which the proposed community note, Karmelo Anthony was convicted of murder, not a minor mistake for the fatal 2025 stabbing. No matter what happens to the Karmelo Anthony case, white Americans have a huge problem going forward. Why? Why? Oh, this is Hotep Goldstein.
Listen, there's been a lot of talk lately about one particular issue, and that is black people. Who they are, who they're not, what they are not, how they're supposed to act versus how they act, all this other shit, right? You know, usually black folks will have one of a couple different reactions to this type of rhetoric. They will either defend against it or they will fight back in the form of saying, well, you people aren't shit either. So that's one of the two lanes that you will find that most black people will choose between. I, myself, I take the lesser traveled third lane when it comes to this type of rhetoric. Basically, what it boils down to is, I get that you're upset. You see a lot of bullshit online. You may even see it in your personal life, which is more rare than seeing it online. But I know some of you still have that story. Life is what it is. Right? These things happen. But no matter how you feel about what you see online, what you've seen in your real life, what it is you perceive black people to be, no matter how you feel about that, okay, there's nothing you can do about it. Right? Hence the lesser traveled third road, because not everybody is really built to take on the mantle of villain and laugh in your bitch ass face about being that. I am. Why? Because I'm Goldstein.
The woke ride's afraid of Goldstein.
So at the end of the day, you can take to online forums, social media outlets like X. You can have your pity parties. You can bitch and complain about street takeovers and motherfuckers running in and out of motherfucking stores with shit. People getting the brakes beat off of their motherfucking ass, or just, you know, simple shit like niggas eating pineapple with Kool-Aid. You can complain about all of that from now until Jesus returns, and there ain't shit you can do about any of it. I know that's a fucking bitter pill to swallow. I get it.
You're not wrong.
That's a hard thing to take for most people. The answer for people who find themselves in that particular lane of helpless, I get that the natural course for people like that is to take to online and start finger bitching. These people, why? Our country, me, us, what, how, why? Shut up, though, because it amounts to nothing. There's nothing you can do about it. Ever. That's just the reality. I think as a person, you should ground yourself in reality more so than anything else. There's always the ideal world of how things should be, but you shouldn't live there. It's a great bar to set. It's something to strive for. We all need that. But there's that, and then there's reality. And the reality is, you can't stop motherfuckers from being stabbed in the heart. You can't. And that's just the way it's been since the beginning of time. There's always going to be someone getting stabbed in the heart.
Hey, niggas get shot every day, B.
I don't see why you have to place this firmly at the feet of black people, especially when you consider that less than 1% are even engaging in this type of act in the first place, out of 47 million people. So if anything, what you should be doing is counting yourself lucky that that's the number. And also, you should probably be positioning yourself within this framework in such a way as to make sure that number doesn't increase. But if you keep running your fucking mouth, it's a very good likelihood that it will. Some of you will become emboldened. And it's at that point that some of you will become Austin Metcalf as well. I don't condone this, but I also understand the natural course of things. And what are you going to do as a result? Nothing. The white man doesn't even want to punch anyone for disrespecting his wife anymore. And as it pertains to this motherfucking kimchi dog-eating motherfucking Quang Mang Lee or whatever the fuck his name is, you're the last motherfucker that should be saying anything about niggas. You can't even establish a fucking solid voter base in this country as Asians, for Asians. It's not enough of you. You don't matter. The only real use you had in this motherfucker at any given point in time in American history was making sure them goddamn train tracks were built. We don't take the train anymore. So your usefulness has expired. Count yourself lucky that you're still here, foreigner.
Wow.
At any rate, what have we learned here today? What have we established here today? That you can bitch and complain about us being chimps, us being violent, us being monkeys, us being niggers, all you fucking want. As long as you keep that shit online, you'll be fine. The minute you decide to take it offline, your life will become a whole ass wreck.
You can breathe. You can blink. You can cry. Hell, you're all gonna be doing that.
So if a nigga's not knocking your block off, the system very much will. This is our shit now. We run this. Listen, I don't know how to explain it to you any better. The examples are there. Again, you'll hear this and you'll want to kick back against this notion, and you'll point to 1960s or fucking Germany or some goddamn where in the past, Leopold. I mean, you got wins, sure, you got wins. LA can sit on the sideline with Boston talking about how they got 17 or so banners in the rafter, all they fucking want. You're still on the sideline, bitch. The Knicks are in the championship right now. Relieve yourself of the stress of this online banter. You're fighting a fight you can't win, and you're making yourselves look like women in the process. That's never a good proposition. What would Thor have done? That's what you need to be asking yourself. And when you can honestly look yourself in the mirror and say to yourself, well, Thor would have tore shit up and I'm just not built like that, you got to start asking yourself why. And when you do, you will find that the least of your problems are niggas. Anyway.
So, as you can say from my friend Hotep Goldstein, I was talking about this, well, not talking about, I was thinking about this the other day, how much time we spend bitching about people online. And I do it too. I get I get frustrated just watching people bring up hate. I think that people he's addressing the most are the Elijah Schafers of the world, or some of the people who are just so focused on assuming that all black people are like that, when even though the fact that we're the number one victims of murder, there's still only a tiny percentage of us doing that. I bet the most black people that you deal with in your day, you don't have any problems with. But in this case too, it's a good kid who did something really fucking stupid. So it's fascinating. But then you got people, oh my God, Isaac Hayes II. Karmelo Anthony verdict shows that justice system has reverted back to the Jim Crow era South. Okay, that's just as dumb as some of the far right activists are saying. It is no longer about evidence. It's no longer about right or wrong. It's about keeping racial score through the prosecution and imprisonment of black people. It was no surprise that an all-white jury wasn't all white. We'd find a 19-year-old kid who was bullied and harassed, not bullied by two 6'1" bullies. Guilty of murder while he was minding his business. We've seen this story before. A young black man is put on trial. Somehow the burden shifts from what happened to him to why he should not have defended himself. No, why he should not have stabbed somebody in the chest. The facts become secondary. No, the facts are there. The law is there. The optics become everything. Well, the optics are everything to you, and to a lot of people. It's only the optics that matter, not the facts. There's a big difference between the optics and the facts. And the internet telephone game, by the way. The outcome feels predetermined long before the verdict is read. People would tell you not to make it about race, but race has always been part of the story in America. The hard truth is that many black people no longer believe they will receive the benefit of the doubt when their freedom is on the line. How about in the Ahmaud Arbery case? Did that verdict work out for black people? Those guys were convicted in South Carolina. I think that was an all-white jury too. That was an all-white jury as opposed to a sort of all-white jury with some Indians and Asians and whatever in this jury. Clarification, while the jury in Anthony's murder had no black jurors, it was not all white. Reports confirm a diverse panel including white, Hispanic, Asian, and other jurors. 5 white males noted in coverage, plus women of color. So it wasn't an all-white jury. This is crazy. Ray Christmas, we are organizing a mostly peaceful protest. What does that mean for Karmelo Anthony? If that all-white jury won't give us racial justice, fine, we'll dig it for ourselves. What wasn't an all-white jury, again. But, 'cause Again, it was not. Everyone keeps saying all white jury. This has nothing to do with it. Anyway, I think I've had enough. I've had enough. This is the stupidity behind some of this is wild. Thank you, by the way, TC, for sharing the show. And okay, well, I can't put that on the screen. All right, and then let's make sure I got the aggregator out here correctly. I do. All right, that's it for today. I'll drop these links here, and we're gonna get out of here. Thanks for being here so late, because I was here so late, and that's all I got to say about that. So I hope you all have a great day. Here they come. Give me 1 second. There we go. And here are the links for today. Don't go to that hump day link, though. A lot of naked bodies on there. All right. Thanks. Have a great day. I got to go. My name is Dawg Knight, and I am out of here. Bye-bye.
Hey, this is Dawg Knight, and thank you for watching today on the Dawg Knight channel. If you have an observation or remark you'd like to make about this video or my channel, I absolutely welcome you to write it in the comment section down below. I really look forward to hearing from you. And before you go, if you like what you saw but you're not already subscribed, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and definitely click that bell that pops up afterward so you'll be notified when I post new videos or when we go live. I broadcast my live show, The Morning Night Live, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. A special thank you to all supporters of this channel who share our videos on social media and who make donations through the Streamlabs link, which is also in the description down below. Thanks again, and until next time, I'm Dawg Knight, and I'm out of here.